I guess I started feeling empty. It was probably around 7th grade. I had two really good buddies in middle school, and that's who I started kind of hanging out with. And I'd always gotten high before that, but they were kind of like those two dudes were who I went and just blazed with and got high and stuff like that. And one of them, still today, is just one of the biggest atheists that I've probably ever met. Him and his dad are both just crazy against the whole religion thing and stuff like that. But I always figured that there had to be some sort of purpose to life, that there's no way that Big Bang Theory is how I got put on the planet. So I realized as they're kind of shoving this stuff down my throat that Christianity is bogus, and which I always believed it was in the first place, but they throw other stuff at me that didn't quite make sense, and it kind of took all hope that I thought I had a way. And it was kind of like that there's no meaning to life. That's why I started really getting depressed. It was my 8th grade year, especially after I got expelled for selling drugs, and my parents were talking to me and stuff like that. And that's when depression really hit. And that's when I made that legitimate decision in my head that I didn't want to live anymore. And it was it's a crazy thing, knowing that in your head that tomorrow you're not going to be a human being. You're just going to be a statistic. Someone who gave up, and that decision that I made was very real in my head. So I tried to find comfort in athletics, just to kind of chase something to fill the empty void, trying to find something, a reason why I was alive, just like kind of I was just looking for meaning, and I felt like something was missing my entire life, growing up, just because I didn't fit in with my family. I was always the odd one out. I was always the one getting suspended and expelled from schools, and mom having to come down and take me out of school because the teachers didn't want to deal with me. And I was the one failing all my classes. I've never had a 3.0 GP, 3.0 GP. It was a GPA, is that what it's called? GPA in my entire life. Like my accumulative throughout high school was like a 2.1, so and it's just stuff like that. I've never really fit in. I never really succeeded at anything except for being a loser before I found God. And it was just it got worse and worse throughout high school. And my freshman year, it was kind of just screwing around with muscle relaxers. And moving into my sophomore year is when it's kind of where the psychedelics kicked in with shrooms and acid and stuff like that. My junior year is when I really started drinking heavily, and taking sleep pills with alcohol, and just blacking out, and then waking up and just wondering where you're going to be at. And I quit selling drugs finally, just because I worked for my church at the time while I was selling drugs, and my mom handled my bank account, so my account never fell below a couple $1,000s or something like that. And they were starting to ask questions about how I was spending all this money, but I was never losing money just because I was selling drugs on the side. I would put it in my checking account because it was stupid. And I screwed around with cocaine for a few weeks, but it was hitting that, it was what I would consider rock bottom. I didn't have to worry about my life. I didn't have to worry about TJ Fields when I was high on those. And it was, I don't want to say it was like the closest thing to God, but it was, in a sense, it's a feeling that you can't attain without taking something like that. So it wasn't until spring break my senior year, my brother, who was in Oklahoma attending a Bible college at the time, asked me, to come down and visit for spring break, which was a full 10 days. I flew down there. The very first night I was there, he told me that we were going to go pray over some church building, and I remember there's a round table in the middle of the room that we were all sitting at, just kind of chit-chatting and meeting everybody, and then they get up and start walking around the room praying. I just sat there on my phone and just played a game as they were walking around me playing, and didn't really pay attention to it or anything like that. And I remember one of Steven's best friends, and it was his roommate at the time, came over and just kind of started praying for me, and he started speaking over my life, and I started listening once he started telling me about he started telling me about God, and that how I'd heard all my life that that I was a man of God, and that I had purpose and I had calling, but I'd never experienced it. So it was something that I didn't really believe. But he was telling me that I had a calling, and that I had a purpose, and that God had a plan for my life, and everything that's ever happened in my life has been everything wrong that God has turned for good, and that there was a reason that I wasn't dead or in prison already, and and it was God. And the very next day after that, my brother had a Bible study. It was just a bunch of guys got together, and they were kind of just talking about a book they were reading, and another guy grabbed me and took me into, it was like a windowed closet. It was super weird, super small space and stuff like that. And it was the first time that I accepted that Jesus was real. Because this guy started reading my mail and started telling me all the drugs I had done, how many chicks I had been with, things I thought about my dad and my brother that I've never told anybody, like deep secrets that I've never heard in vocals. It was being told me what I was, he would say something, and it was something that I had never told anybody, and I never intended to tell anybody, and it was something that I could say is as real as oxygen and air, that the fact that Jesus was real, and I did have a calling on my life, and I do have a purpose. And immediately after that happened, I went up to my room and I grabbed my my journal, and April 12th, 2012 was the night that I gave my life to Christ. And just from then I kind of came back and realized how real it was to be a Christian. This guy was writing something saying how, you just follow guidelines and stuff like that, but he says, like, how easy is it just to do what the rest of the world's doing? And like, how much more courage and endurance and stuff does it take to say no to all the temptations of the world, and to say no to sin? And I kind of just realized that Jesus was put on a cross for a reason, and it was not just to save me, but it was something that I had to make a choice whether to be all in or to kind of fade out. And I didn't want to be, I'm not a lukewarm guy. I'm not a half guy. I'm pretty laid back, but when I make a decision that that's what's going to happen and stuff like that. So I made the decision that I was gonna live for God, and ever since then, I've continually grown and became stronger in my spirit, and every day is a battle, but I have no fear of tomorrow. I'm not ever defeated in a day. There's nothing that's ever happened to me that's ever sent me to rock bottom where I didn't know if I could make it through the day or anything like that. I'm extremely happy. I've never been closer to my parents than I am now. I legitimately have everything that I could ever imagine in my life right now, and there's nothing that can take that away from me. And and that you know,